Bikini Beach barbecue and women behind bars.
You know, if men didn't watch these trashy shows, they would take them off the air.
Hey, thank God for men, huh? Hey!
I think you should know. I have joined a crusade to tell the world that as a woman, I am as able as any man, and I demand equal rights.
All right, who gave you the copy of Cosmo?
Never mind who.
Listen, honey,
Let me say, don't call me honey. I am not your honey. I am not your anything. I'm
Don't say it, please, don't.
A feminist.
Kick it.
Welcome to Splat Attack, a podcast overflowing into the slime-filled past. I'm your smooth move backup dancer, Brett.
And I'm your motorized recliner operator, Alex. And Brett.
Yes, Alex?
What are we doing back at the Roundhouse?
Well, due to the overwhelming popularity of the Roundhouse 30th anniversary reunion that we did way back in season 3, we decided to delve a little deeper into the rich legacy of this beloved 90s Nick gem and do an episode review to satiate our slimesters' appetite for more Roundhouse.
I'm excited that we're going to cover the show again. It's been a great joy to relive many memories of the show with the cast during our reunion episode. Speaking of episodes, which one are we doing for today's special episode review?
Glad you asked. This one is a request from one Roundhouse alum who's with us today, Sean Muniz, who is kind enough to send us both genuine copies of a Roundhouse script that I have right here. But it turns out that this episode, he referred to it as the equality episode, but as it turns out when we did some more research, it's actually called Feminism. So either way, we're going to have some fun unpacking what happens here with all of our Roundhouse friends. And don't worry, equality will appear in some shape or form later on.
Oh, yeah. We have quite a few Roundhouse alum here to teach us their cool moves and soulful songs for today's episode. So some from the reunion and some fresh faces as well. So joining us in the studio today, we have Mickey Duran. Hello, Mickey.
Hello.
We also have Mark David. What up, Mark?
What's happening? Good to see everybody.
And we also have David Sidoni. What up, David?
What's going on, gang?
And we have Ivan Dadunsky. What's up? And we also have Julene Renee.
Hi.
And of course, we have the Sean himself, who has recommended this episode. How you doing, Sean?
Doing well, thank you much.
And sharing the screen together, we have Mr. Alfred Carr Jr. and Seymour Green. What's up, fellas?
On the clock.
You have to show your face, Alfred. Get the camera.
Just going way overboard with the nonsense, okay? All right? He's from Denver, Colorado, so all that bummer clock nonsense got to go.
Well, we're gonna dive, and also with not only do we have the cast here, but we also have let me back up. I wanted to have Natalie Nucci also be a part of the episode, and I know she very much wanted to be here, and Jennifer Seehee and John Crane, all three of them wanted to be here because I wanted to get as many cast members that were on this one particular episode. All three had scheduling conflicts, but when I did reach out to Natalie, she had specifically requested that I invite a fan by name. So joining us in Natalie's stead, we have Trisha Haywood. How you doing, Trisha?
I can't believe I'm here. It's surreal and I'm honored. So thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for being here.
Yeah.
All right, so the way this will work, for you Slimesters who have been listening for a while, you know how this goes. We'll go through a bit of the episode, and typically before, Brett and I would give our impressions of the episode, but now that we've got the cast here with us, then we'll just pick their brains and see what they can remember. They've already told us that they don't remember a thing, but we'll see if anything comes to memory.
I think I remember more behind the scenes than on the scenes.
Yeah, and that's perfectly fine. We want to hear all about it.
No, I
yes.
don't.
I'd follow
I do
along,
know,
but I already gave you the script, so I don't know what to read.
Yeah, what's going on in here?
Now I do know.
Supposed to always make a copy. You know that. Come on now, Sean. You're supposed to make a backup copy. What's wrong with you now?
Now I do know that before we started this episode, because I mentioned those three, but Amy, who was also a part of season 3, Mickey had said that she wasn't there for on screen, but she was there in the audience. And you said what? That was part of her audition, or what was it?
No, I just remember her being. I recognize. I just like that girl looks like she's checking us out, and then she came on the show. So that was just a whole like her. I think she was being interviewed to be on the show, and so getting to check out what it was.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. All right. Well, before we get into the synopsis, and we got a couple of questions before we get into the synopsis, Brett, give us a bit of the details of this episode.
Sure. So for the basic episode info of Roundhouse Feminism, it was from season 3, episode 1. The air date was a little bit hard to find, but we did get the year, and it came out in 1993. If any of you happen to know the date, definitely share it with us. Otherwise, it will just be known as from that year. Yep. It was directed by Ron Andreasen and written by Buddy Sheffield, John Crane, Ray Lee, Nancy Neufeld, Heather Sheffield, J. David Stern, Bernie Anchetta, Glenn Berger, and Sheila R. Lawrence.
I think it was pretty early on in 1993. I mean, I could just tell by my baby fat, so it's fine.
Is that like carbon dating?
That's how I categorize.
He's never been fat a day in her life.
Still chubby cheeks.
Well, before we get into the main synopsis, and David had actually mentioned this a little bit beforehand, over on Facebook, there is a Roundhouse group over on Facebook that Trisha and I have been a part of. And I did ask them that we're going to be doing this episode tonight and talking about this one particular episode. Do you all have any questions? And Laura Williams had a few very good questions. So I'm going to pass the microphone over to Trisha, and she's going to ask some of Laura's questions.
I get to represent the fans today, and I hope I do everyone justice. So, Laura, I'm going to ask your questions on your behalf. Laura asked, what was it like as a returning cast member to come back to season 3? What were some changes that were made? And for Sean, what was it like joining the cast in season 3?
Go, Sean. That was hard for you. I know it was.
It was, I mean, we've had this conversation a little bit. It was tough for me to join the cast. I loved it. I had a great time. Half the cast were already friends of mine. It was a tough season to join because I was having to come in to take the place of someone who was beloved by the fans, the cast. He was a good friend. Didn't leave the show because of choice, but because of necessity. And it's always hard to come in and you never get to come in behind someone like that and feel like you're going to do it justice. I don't think we knew what to do with me in a weird way. But it was a great experience. Again, because I had so many friends that I already knew, that helped. That helped a lot in the welcome process. I had never met Alfred and Seymour. Well, maybe I had before then. But we clicked right away. A few of us. I had already danced with a few of them. It was an interesting challenge to step in and try to fill a role. I was very comfortable doing the choreography. Obviously, you're dancing with Barry Lather, who I had the privilege of working with. Did his music video for his song, but to get to dance with the group that I got to dance with, that helped a lot, especially when they weren't sure what to do with me as a role, as a character. I'm saying a lot, and that's never a good sign. I will say that it was a unique experience because the show was so kinetic and always flowing. You know, we prepped to do a live theater performance just in front of cameras with live audience. And that always keeps you on your toes because you never know what's going to happen. You never know where the improv might take place. You just never know what unique things might occur when you're taping. But we worked really hard, I think, at the rehearsal part, and I'll give a lot of credit to Rita and Buddy. Just, I know I'm gonna forget names here, but the fact is that they did a really great job of getting us prepared. You know, so you do it till you can't do it wrong, right? And then whatever happens. So that helped a lot. It was a good learning experience, a good growth experience for me.
And the rest of you, what was like coming back for season 3, since this was the first episode of the season?
I think it was kind of sad because we lost again another person, because that's when Lisa left, right? Like she was pregnant. So I think because like we formed like this great unit, and then we like, oh, we're gonna form it again, and then it was like it made us feel like, oh, maybe it's not so family. I mean, that's at least how I felt. But I mean, I still had fun. I mean, I was living my best life. I was a young kid on a show, dancing and learning to sing bad, and but they gave me the chance, and then in acting. And that year, I got to play the girl, and that was actually I was really scared, but it was fun. But.
Yeah, we were like it's like a sports team, Chiefs just won the Super Bowl, pretty much the same crew, but some different guys in and out, and some major players left, and they still won. And that's, it was like, we had our core and we mixed and matched.
Mm-hmm. Fair assessment.
I think too, from my perspective, is we had a system that worked, and by the 3rd season, it was doing really well. We had the writing down, we had the songs down, we had timing down. We had all that down, but we lost Crystal, who was a very intimate powerhouse for us to have as our vocal. And then we had Lisa, and like Mickey said, Lisa got pregnant and left, and then I got pregnant with Zoe and had to back off dancing, and then Dominic got sick. So we were like a family that was actually growing, but our popularity was really big at that point. Like I would go to the mall and I would have not so much kids, but you guys, their parents. Their parents would be like, oh, where's my kid right now? Right? My kid's not going to believe me, and that kind of stuff. But it was a lot to handle because our fan base, to me, was our friends, and we were all growing. And so we were embracing new people like Sean. It was taking us a second to adjust to how we still stay open to this new family, I felt like, at least.
Yeah. I feel like behind the scenes, like when somebody new came in, if we were all hanging out, we did this all the time, which was just sit around and joke when Alfred and Seymour and everybody would just like tell all these jokes and just like act out and be funny. And, if you fit into that energy, then the show is going to be fine. That's how I feel.
Yeah. I watched the show today, and I have to say, to your credit, Sean, you slid right in, and it was kind of perfect. It didn't seem like there was any learning curve, in my opinion.
Oh, thank you.
It was, when I watched that episode, there's other episodes that I've seen that are not quite so perfect, but it's kind of a perfect, they didn't really make fixes after the show. I would go to some of the edits, and it was pretty much filmed live to tape and aired as is. And that episode, if you look at it, there's a couple of shots. I'm a picky director now, so I would have changed a few shots. But there's the writing and the timing and the comedy and the singing and the dancing. It is pretty tight. And that show also came with a level of this kind of kooky style in comedy, over the top, loud kind of comedy. And Sean, you fit right in. Like if you look at all the pieces, as I watched today, You were right. You ramped right up into it. There was no, like I said, I don't know if there was much of a learning curve, and because we were all already 3 seasons in and used to that rhythm and the pace. It looked. I was impressed by the episode, and you should feel really great about it because it was fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah, my wife, who is from the dance world, she always comments about Sean from that different episode where we did Lame, the Fame School. She's like, that's when Munoz shined. She's like, that's when I know Sean, because he was just completely satirically goofing, and oh my God, you were so funny in that, and like not dead center, just a little bit on the side, like.
That move, I will tell you, that is one of my moments. It's 1993, so here we are, 30 years later?
Yeah.
And I remember making Ivan bust out laugh.
Yep.
And I'll never forget that moment. And when you have a moment like that, you want to recreate it, of course, right?
Maybe I could go to one of those special schools on TV like those kids, they sing and dance in the street.
Hey, we're gonna sing forever. Swinging our heads down and say, hey, we're not too smart or too clever. Baby, remember remember.
And I thought, there's no way I'm going to be able to do this again. And I think I managed to do it to him at least one more time where I tried to do the same thing. And it was a total accident when I did it, but it felt right. I got to tell you, that was that was one of my proud moments of the entire season.
Aw.
And Ivan, we've all been in that audition where it just didn't go right and you try to wing it. You try to fake it, play it off. That's funny. I appreciate you remembering that.
Ivan, that was really thoughtful, and that makes a lot of sense. I was going to say, and I know you were always looking at it with that different eye too, but you must have missed a couple of those days in the edits, because I know they were in there at least for a few hours, sprinkling most of Mark David's scenes in there, since those were most of our pickups.
What do we say? We're just calling me out to be like, I don't study my scripts like I should. Is that what we're all talking about?
Oh my! I'll say though, the funny talk about timing, Ivan. In this episode, the thing. We were tight. We had like a team, but you had to include the cameraman. And in this episode, the hole that for me was like the timing is so long is when Fry Willie, the whole giant, over and land, and Seymour's just standing there while the cameraman goes off. But Seymour's face is just waiting with the whale. I'm like waiting for the cameraman to push in, and now we can continue. But it's so obvious because the whale was huge. I just laughing.
Coming soon, a troubled street kid befriends a captive killer whale, and in his courageous effort to free him, gets stranded on a desert island. With nothing to eat and near death, the boy is faced with the most gut-wrenching decision of his life in Fry Willie. Go, Willie, go! Matt Roush of USA Today says, Fry Willie was a whale of a movie. I can't believe he ate the blowhole thing.
Well, Brett, why don't you get started and let the Slimesters who are listening in, let them know what happened in this episode.
Alrighty. Well, let's just dive into the plot of Roundhouse Feminism. So we open up once the theme song ushers in our Roundhouse gang into the set. We jump right into a sex ed class type skit where Natalie Nucci's character explains how the female reproductive system works under a suspended plastic sheet with a diagram of a female figure on it. She further adds how a human being is quote-unquote sexless to begin with before it's born. David Sidoni's character makes a joke regarding the diagram, commenting that Arnie, Ivan Dodinsky's character, is still immature. Natalie continues explaining how if the sperm carries the Y chromosome to the egg, the child will become a boy. Likewise, if the sperm carries the X chromosome, it will make it a girl. The camera then swoops through the diagram while Mom, who's Sean DeWalt's character, announces an inside look at Fallopian Hall, where Julian Renee's character introduces Malcolm X chromosome, which is Alpha J. Carr's character, to speak to the female audience, who are all wearing X's on their hats. Malcolm X chromosome gives a rousing speech proclaiming his female audience has been suppressed. The crowd cheers, and we cut back to the classroom sketch, but not before Sean DeWalt's character states to the camera, Malcolm X chromosome, a Spike Lee reproduction. Back in the classroom, the teacher, who's played by Natalie, asks her class what the main difference is between men and women. Mark, which is David Sidoni's character in this episode, claims men are superior, to which Sam, Mickey Duran's character, challenges his statement with an arm wrestle on Sean Munice's back. Sam wins, turns out. Mark and the class scatter, transitioning to the next scene of the sketch.
Of course.
Trisha, I turn it over to you.
Well, Laura had another question, and this one was for Mickey. She said, did Mickey enjoy being the star of the story? And then she said, because she was great.
Aw.
But did you enjoy being the girl?
Yeah, of course. But I was still, like I said before, I was very nervous. I was more comfortable dancing. So like reading that, it was challenging for me. But yeah, no, I had a lot of fun, especially when I got to beat David Sidoni in an arm wrestle.
This episode is one of those landmark episodes for not just Roundhouse, but for Nickelodeon, because it handles such a very, very difficult topic to discuss, especially for youth. What was it like to handle such a mature subject for the Nickelodeon audience at that time?
I mean, for me, like, because I felt like it was still relating to it. I mean, I think I was 19 at that time. I felt there was a lot of similarities, even though it was like, I know it's towards a younger audience. But I felt those things. I related to like wanting the boy to ask me and all that kind of stuff, and not feeling. I don't know, I just related to those kind of things, and also like I always competed with the boys and wanted to be just as good as, or felt that I was, but was always getting treated like a girl.
I was gonna say Mickey had backstory on that. She was always like in the scene before Roundhouse. You know, I remember in Newsies when Kenny brought you in, you know, and for the audition, because she had just that strong, great attitude. But in general, I mean, I was going to make a joke and say, yeah, we were woke before it was cool. But when you said, what was it like tackling that adult stuff? And I'm like, you kidding? What you saw in the air was like 3% of what we were tackling. The rest of it all got censored. We were going to bring all that heat every week, but they only let us go so far.
And it's interesting that it was that one and the gang violence one that got through with everything.
Yeah, and they were back to back in the season as well.
For me, it's dealing with dynamics in relationships, right? And in the beginning, it says that this, boy, he's immature. Well, we look at the dad, and the dad is completely immature. He's like in a driving high chair with a diaper on. He never leaves. He's got a barbecue. He's got a television. He's calling his son a wussy and a name. He doesn't even know what his wife's job is. He's not present. And if you're going to say that feminism is in response to anything, it should just be the dynamics of the relationship. The mom sounds like she's working all the time, dealing with the kids. He's watching, bikini girls, and the only thing that he zooms forward for is for beans. So this is the type of man that we're discussing. We could say that's the lowest that you can get. So that's an immature person in the relationship. Whether it's the male or female, these two forces that started a life together, one is feeding off of it and the other one is supporting it. That's how I see it. And then we go into stereotypes to hold that true. And then we do commercials and we make jokes and we get underwear for Christmas with funny things on it. You know what I mean? But we don't say, hey, someone has to be mature here on the other side. Otherwise, she's just spinning in a circle going, no one's listening to me. I'm going to rant and I'm going to rave and I'll go back to work tomorrow, So that's how I see it.
Yeah, a lot of the mom and dad dynamic here wrestles with them trying to meet in the middle because they're both in their own little worlds perceiving the issue very differently. Dad doesn't seem to be aware of the issue, while mom feels like this needs to be handled right away, and there's just a lot to deal with within every family on the show. So I appreciate that throughout all the different sketches throughout this episode, there's that common thread of what are mom and dad going to do about this, that conflict that comes between them, and it begins to start to create cracks in their family dynamic as well.
I just want to say, finally, rounding that out, the thing that kind of makes me sad is at the end, the dad has to be on medication to say something nice to his daughter that she out. Yeah, right? Like, Dad, she goes, Dad, I finally got a date. He's like, oh, good, honey. But before all of that medication, he was not able to be nice,
Sounds like the real world.
Yeah, the real world, or like Futurama, where Bender and Phil J. Fry had to have like an emotional chip implanted into them so that they could respond to Leela and Amy in the show the way that they wanted the communication coming from them, so that they can understand each other better. It's funny for comedic sake, but also has a lot of deeper undertones that really makes you think about the issues at hand here. So moving on with the plot of this episode. In the next scene, Jennifer Seehey's character congratulates Sam on her arm wrestling win, putting Mark in his place. Contrary to belief, Sam admits she didn't do it to prove her superiority, but rather because she likes him and wanted a way to hold his hand. Jennifer's character reaffirms her praise for sticking up for us X chromosomes. Sam then complains about why can't guys just act nice for a change, which abruptly transitions to Juline's character portraying a fake ad for 555 Whipped, a phone number where you can connect with nice guys who will wait on you hand and feet. Sam gets on the cardboard TV with Mark David's character to engage in a conversation. Transition to another TV ad sketch, where Sean Muniz' character introduces Fry Willy, a smash hit box office film involving a giant orca inflatable sailing over a prop ocean wall into an oversized prop frying pan. Critics, Ivan Dadinsky and Mark David, give it punny praise, while Seymour Willis closes the sketch with the line, "This is some killer whale." Trisha, do you have some questions for us?
So what did you guys enjoy most about doing all the fake TV sketches and ads? Did you have a favorite one? What did you enjoy most about that?
You mean your Lonnie Anderson just stood out to me, and that was hilarious.
Yeah, Lonnie Anderson.
I just died.
Hi, I'm Lonnie Anderson. People all over the country love me because I was recently dumped. When my husband started running around with a young, no-talent nobody, you can imagine how upset I was. That's why I developed Burt Reynolds rap.
I always seem to come with that southern accent when I had those kind of bean or farting or fat dang dog. Somehow I just like went to that guy.
And your face gets all like this too. You
Yeah.
hold it. You hold
I love when you inside you.
The wife and kids are out. You're finally alone. You crave what every red-blooded American male needs. Please.
No, and the Lonnie Anderson one was good. It's like, but he's old for a long, long time, ladies.
That hit deep nowadays. That hit deep.
Only Burt Reynolds rap keeps your husband fresh. So when he's through being a puss, you can either saw him out and keep him or throw him away. Uh-oh. Looks like this one's got freezer burns. Burt Reynolds rap because he's only young once, but he's old for a long, long time.
I like Sally, Jess, and Raphael. That
That wasn't on this episode, was it? That's a good
It
one,
wasn't on
though.
this one, but it's still a great one.
Yeah. I just, as far as like random cutaways, makes me laugh every time.
We're all here, Sally, Jesse. We can do it, right? Raphael. Jesse?
I like the speaker. Mark is the speaker.
I loved when Ivan did Lewis play the saxophone.
That's classic. But those TV sketches, the ones that ended up inside the cardboard thing, I think we all liked them because they're so quick. And they were so impactful, and boom, 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 and you're out, and then you got to transition to whatever's next. But as David would say, like those big monologue things that I had to do that were the big boo-boos.
You're great.
I just got to give him grief. No, those were awesome because they were snippets, they were current, they were pop culture, and some of them were 10 or 15-year references a long time ago about infomercials, and it was just kind of cool to that was the thing with the Roundhouse. You take something serious, and then you throw in not just a TV commercial, but we all go fuzzy with our hands, and it's 7 commercials. It was awesome.
That's definitely a fun part about the show that I remember most fondly is just the rapid fire of the sketches and some of the things you could pick up on even as kids of like commercials or other pop culture things you would see on TV. And that was part of the fun of it, is making those connections.
Yeah, this episode was loaded with medication. A lot of great comedic medication names and references. It was good.
Oh my God. Curtain Rod.
Every time I see a commercial now, it sounds like a Roundhouse. All the new Big Pharma stuff that's on TV. I'm like, oh, that would have been on our show.
We need to Roundhouse-ify it.
Yeah.
But at the end, you could die from everything right now on television. You could die, and they tell you really fast. You could die from all these things. Here we go. I'm going to tell you all the things you're going to die for. All these things you're going to die for. Yeah.
But they show you all these pleasant images, so it's okay.
Yeah, it's all just laughs and giggles and sunshine.
I got the vaccination shot, and everybody was worried about getting vaccination shots, and I got the vaccination shot, and I got the booster shot, and I get no side effects. So I mean,
I will say my favorite of Malcolm X is the huge punctuation mark that Alfred's pelvis makes at the very end of the game. Oh, he nails it. His wings really far out and around. Amazing.
You've been had. You've been took. Hoodwinked. Bamboozled. Led astray. Run amok. Say bamboozled. Where did it land on the sperm cell? The sperm cell landed on us. The Malcolm X chromosome, a Spike Lee reproduction.
All right, Brett, next part of the episode, my friend.
Moving on. So after this, the camera swings into the Every Family set where Dad, played by Jonathan Crane, has a heated argument with Mom, Sean DeWalt, on how she's fed up with making her husband dinner. Apparently, she did not get the Barneswell account because it was given to a man, despite her being at work longer and working much harder to earn it, and this outcome troubles her greatly. Dad questions, "What is it you do anyway?" Mom replies people in entertainment always work vague jobs, but go for the Barneswell account. Dad makes a jab at Mom, complaining that his dinner will be later than ever thanks to this issue. The scene segues into Mom watching a fake TV ad in the living room feature Corey Wyman, played by David Sidoni, displaying equality. That Mom can drink to feel more empowered to stick it to the man, thanks to real testosterone extracted from the biceps of Arnold Schwarzenegger. Mom grabs the tea out of the TV and guzzles it without a second thought. She then sprouts chest hair and hits on Corey. He ignores her pass and suggests the audience to try it decaffeinated for all the fuzz without the buzz. Trisha.
So, do any of you resonate with any of the characters from the scene? Mom, Dad, Corey?
Well, for me personally, I ended up being a mom by myself. So I had my kids, and so I was working a lot. And there was stuff that was going on in my work that I would come home and I didn't get the done. My kids were like, "Are you making dinner still?" Like, nobody cares. All that stuff going on in my mind, and my house is comedy. We're just raised on comedy. That's just what's happening. But in our most stressful times, most of the comedy would come out of my house from when I was frustrated. Like, they wanted to make a pizza, and I got a phone call about a job, and I had to handle them. "Throw it, Mom, throw it." And I just threw it up, and it stuck on the ceiling, and it was hilarious. And it dripped down like a booger, and we were like, okay, call Domino's Pizza right now. We're ordering pizza. But that moment broke it. And those moments when we break, I think, is when we realize we're just moving through our life a little too fast. And isn't it the moments that we share, together with each other that we can laugh and we can say, "I'm overwhelmed. I didn't get the account, and you're driving around in a chair with a barbecue on it, and the kids are fighting. I need a moment." But I could definitely relate to the tension of families having to work and go to school and meet all these time obligations, I guess.
Really good, Julene.
Thanks, Martin.
I always resonated with Sean with what she had to say. I mean, what they scripted her to say. She was very feminist, and pro woman, so I loved it.
And this episode in particular, and please add to it if you can think of other examples, but watching the show, this episode I have noticed more so than the others, where the audience was really applauding almost every single, I mean, they always applaud after a scene, but almost after everything Sean had said, there was a huge uproar, almost everything that she said.
I am strong. I am invincible. I am woman, hear me roar.
Suffrage, she slipped into that horrible Helen Reddy thing.
I think we should call manholes person-holes, huh? And why are there men used but not women used? If they can put a man on the moon, then why can't they put all of them there?
Was this a fairly common thing, or was this a pretty new thing just for this one episode?
I think that was striking for this particular episode, because some of the other things that I would think would hit just were crickets. And then when we started getting into the subject matter, they were really responding to, I thought that was struck me a couple times, like, wow, my goodness gracious.
Well, a lot of shows don't talk about it, so that's reasons why everybody was kind of like gravitating towards that. So okay, somebody's actually talking about this subject for real on television, although it was comedy, but we was actually discussing something that only gets discussed on Dateline NBC or 60 Minutes. So
and for this age group too.
Right, in front of this age group, so they was like trying to understand and grapple with the fact that they're talking about adult stuff, real stuff that actually exists. And and kids probably now, people that was watching the show then, they're like, this stuff is still going on now. Wow, what's going on? So it's tough. I mean, even though we were tackling it, and you thought you would think by now we would be further along, but we still struggling with it. As a Homo sapien. So that's part of the human experience. I guess.
Whoa! Can't use that word, bro. Don't call me sapien. Actually, here's a question that I have now, since we're talking about how it affects and what our thoughts are on the episode. So this is for Trisha. So Trisha, you were a fan of the show at the time, and how old were you in '93 when the episodes were aired?
I would have been 13.
Okay, which was the demographic? And I think I would say predominantly, would you say our demographic was teenage 12, 13, 14-year-old females? Mm-hmm. Ladies, yeah. So how did the episode
I don't know, boys was watching it too.
Yeah, but there was only 4 of them, so we're not really talking about
it. Too.
But the question is, Trisha, as a 13-year-old girl watching an episode like this, how did it register for you?
I was trying to think back, and I watched these episodes over and over and over. And for some reason, this is an episode I didn't watch that often. And I think it's because
we got to turn this off then.
Yeah, I've watched it enough this week. No, I was a very innocent 13-year-old. So I think a lot of this episode kind of went over my head, and either that or felt kind of taboo, like, oh, they said sperm, like I was uncomfortable. But I also realized, just kind of thinking back to this and some other scenes from some of the other episodes, even back as far as season 1, how much this show empowered young girls. And even if I couldn't put my finger on it as a 13-year-old, to think about how my self-esteem or my self-confidence was affected by this show, and that I felt empowered to just, reach my potential. And I think even back to like season 1 with like Dominic and Crystal, like in the ring, like having the sparring match, and I could still hear Crystal saying like, nobody's gonna tell me how to be me. And at that point I was like 11 or 12 for season 1, and I still remember, and I can quote the whole thing, but I won't do that to you, where they were like, okay, the boy's gonna have to come back with some sort of a comeback, but he didn't, and girls win, and it was like goosebumps, and I cheered, the girls won. And I think from like season 1 on, as a young woman, a girl watching the show, I always saw the women being, spotlighted and empowering young girls to be equal. And, I didn't know the term gender equality. I didn't know that was a thing. I didn't necessarily know what a feminist was. I probably found out on that episode what a feminist was, but it's definitely molded how I thought of myself and how I, grew into my teen years. So it was an episode that I didn't understand the weight or the importance of the topic at the time. And so now
I think because like what you're saying, we didn't have the words, the song about, sorry. Because we didn't have the song, like how we used words instead of the songs. Like for Crystal's thing, I think in a lot of episodes we use songs to also help you remember, what the meaning of everything was. Like it was more we played it out. So maybe we was missing that.
And to your point, Sean, over in the Facebook group again, I'm going to throw another fan out there. Jill St. John, when I had announced that we were doing this episode, she had actually commented that this is one of her top episodes and that she is always quoting it. So there is, it did resonate with an audience. So it's great that it stuck with people and that it's something that they were able to continue to chew on all these years.
Right. So yeah, to answer your question, it wasn't something where like this was one I could quote and I knew, I watched all the time, but it definitely like it sunk in. And I took the message of this one. I mean, I think about just, the self-esteem episode and the popularity episode and all these things that like I was dealing with at that age, and how much this show and the messages that were like filling my head and I didn't even realize were like impacting how I was going to go into my teen years and how I was going to think of myself. And I know my self-confidence and my self-esteem and all, I now as an adult, to look back at this episode and think, yeah, I've had to be in the workforce and I've had to, stand up for myself as a graphic designer in a world where it's very male dominated. And I've had to, fight for equality. And I get it. Like I watch that episode now and I'm cheering it on. I didn't necessarily get it as a 13-year-old.
I was going to say, I think the show came from that roots. Like those early episodes of Crystal in the boxing ring and all that, the real bottom line of the show is we take everything awkward and it's, either Ivan or Mickey as, the any kid. And we go through self-esteem and, school elections or whatever. But in general, feminism was there from day one. This was just the one episode we actually talked just about it. But in every episode, whether dealing with sex education or junior high problems or whatever, we always had the girls a little tougher than kind of the fumbling, goofy guys. And that way I thought every episode, the girl characters got always a little bit feature and a little bit smarter. Of course, that's the guy playing dumb kid, so everybody was smarter than me. So
well, if you think too, our show was driven, our showrunner was a woman, Rita, and it would be interesting to have her here to get her take what promoted this particular episode, like what prompted it, what created it. Was this something by design? Was it something that she thought, I want to do an episode based on this? Or was it just the other writers said, hey, we should all, you kick around ideas and, sometimes you don't know where concepts will come from, but I wonder it'd have to come from her. What this particular episode?
You would think there would be maybe something in the culture at that moment that drove that kind of thing, but there was so much space between seasons. I think they just were brainstorming and came up with every.
Well, we tackled a lot of subjects in season 3. I will tell you that if there was one, I guess as we're talking about it, I'm thinking, I had the advantage of coming into a season where everything was on the table. Everything was on the table. And I used to wonder, and probably even later on, I think, how did these kids even get this? Sometimes I felt like, and I don't say this in a criticism way, but You watch episodes of a show that you grew up on, Trisha, you're the impressionable stuff. You don't know it's making an impression on you at the moment. It's later on when you have these epiphany moments when you go, oh, I saw that on Archie Bunker. I saw that on Sanford and Son or Good Times. I saw that on Andy Griffith's show. These little life moments that hit you. So I used to think, do these kids even get these jokes? Because I feel like they're dated. For these kids, they're not going to get it. They're 13, right? They're 13 years old. I mean, I get it because at that time I'm in my 20s, but sometimes maybe that's where the magic happens. You do a joke. Listen, if I'm 30 years old and I'm writing a joke for a 13-year-old kid's show, maybe I'm not really connecting to the audience the way I think I am. However, there's something to be said where you put that more mature humor out there and they catch up to it. Because I grew up on Richard Pryor and George Carlin. I may not have fully grasped it all the time, but there's moments where it catches up to you, right? So
or Carol Burnett.
Good example.
Brought up on
Mary Tyler Moore. I watched an episode of Mary Tyler Moore, and there's an episode where they talk about feminism. Where she's actually Lou Grant's. She was interviewing him for the episode because women in that time couldn't be bosses. So, even that was back in Mary Tyler Moore days. So, to bring it up to speed to Roundhouse is still, again, we're still grappling with it today. Here we are, 2023, and people marching in the streets. You got comics, Dave Chappelle, people talking about it. So it's still out there, man. We struggling with it as a human being, and we got to, it's something I don't know when it's ever going to be fixed, but we have the conversations through comedy, through television, through movies, through music, and we're still trying to, make it work.
Mm-hmm. So. And I feel as long as we continue to put those topics and conversations out there, then eventually people will be willing to answer to it so that we can resolve it and move past it.
Yeah. Still a taboo topic after all these years. So
surprisingly.
No, we're going to keep talking about it.
Yeah, and walk through it because, I was ready to have a child in my life. I was coming to being a mom. That's what was happening in my life. I was coming into the mom time, and I shouldn't get fired from my show, or I shouldn't have to be told that I shouldn't have my baby because it's not good for marketing or whatever. And that's where I was happy is the whole cast came around me, Rita, Buddy, Benny, everyone said when Nickelodeon was like, oh, she's pregnant, you have to fire her. And the first thing he said was, she's driving the show with the comedy with Mark David. Like, that's her place in the show. And the show needs her. Like, Ivan has his place. Alfred has, we all have our place. And so they came to that agreement that I could be on camera as long as you didn't show me pregnant. So we said, okay. So then the prop guys came up with that idea when I was the waitress that I came out with the table attached to me. And then everyone just sat down at the table. On the last episode, they wanted to, what was it? It's hard to sing and dance because I'm pregnant. Oh, hurry up this segment. We were going to show it. We were going to do it. Buddy wrote it into the song. We were going to show that I was pregnant. And it was like, let's hurry up this segment. And I was going to jump out. It's hard to sing. And they said, no way are we going to show that. But you could tell that I was getting bigger or whatever. And I had a lot of fan mail from young girls going, oh my gosh, I'm pregnant. I don't know what to do. Oh my goodness, I'm in this situation. I'm being abused, because they could tell that I was pregnant. And that when that wave hits you of all what's going on behind the scenes in the world, and you get all this dump of beautiful innocence, what do I do? You're faced with like, oh my gosh, you mature very quickly, as what Trisha was talking about. You go, whoa, I'm carrying not only my own career, but I'm carrying the truth of my honesty as a person with the public. I'm being honest in front of everybody. I'm doing it. I'm a young mom. And that helped, I think, a lot of people deal with us on Roundhouse, not in the traditional way, like, oh my God, you're on that show and celebrities, which I went down that path. And that's a marketing path. That's a whole thing that is not real. What we had on Roundhouse was a real connection to everybody. And I think people felt not intimidated to be around this, but like relieved. You're real. You're a real person. You have a real life, a real family, real dreams, and real goals. And you're really friends. You really come together. And that's what I saw still to this day, that people go, oh my God, you're a Roundhouse. What? And it's because they felt themselves being honored for the honesty of what we're just dealing with that we don't talk about.
Indeed.
It's a beautiful answer.
Yeah.
I always thought that Roundhouse felt that way because we were giving a percentage of what we actually felt. Like, it's Nickelodeon. We couldn't let Alfred go off on a 10-minute monologue, but it happened every day, and we laughed our faces off. And, there was so much comedy that was held in, but there was so many, I don't want to say political, but there was just a lot of stuff that the cast and the writers and the directors, we all wanted the world to be more inclusive. That was all it was. So we wanted to go more and more and more in every episode. So what you're seeing is even a censored version, and we're just punching, trying to get more and more out there. That was definitely the vibe on the set.
And it's funny the things that slip through, like Scheissenhausen and things like that.
Yeah.
I know.
That was a beautiful discussion. I loved every bit of that, and we're gonna have some more here in a bit. Brett, why don't you continue the next part of the episode, buddy?
With pleasure. Back in the living room set, Sam laments how she wishes a man would walk alongside her instead of all over her, as her mom remarks, adding she wishes she didn't have to walk 10 paces behind them. We then jumped into a song, If You Can't Beat 'Em, Join 'Em, sung by Jennifer, Sean, Mickey, and Natalie. Cut to our first commercial break. After the commercial break, we return to the Roundhouse where 4 dancers pull off a funky dance routine with matching black stools, hats, trench coats, and shades. We immediately head into a fake TV ad Dad is watching called Weather Channel, the movie, featuring a whole slew of parody celebrities describing different states of weather. The channel changes to Natalie and Julien's characters, who are now bikini babes, dancing on screen. While Dad is enjoying the programming, Mom storms in addressing Dad as Potato Head. She turns off the TV, Dad gets upset, and Mom retaliates, stating she demands equal rights because she is able as any man. Dad replies, okay, who gave you the Cosmopolitan magazine? Mom doubles down, stating she is not his honey. She is a feminist. Dad has a meltdown in a close-up shot on camera, similar to Kevin from Home Alone. Mom paces back and forth center state with a powerful speech on why culture has so many manfluences. She exits stage left while Son, which is Ivan's character, enters, asking Dad how he can appreciate women. Dad tells Son to keep it down, not to advertise he's a man after her tirade. Dad offers to give Son a magazine, to which he perks up with glee. However, it's not what he's expecting. Dad grins, giving his son a copy of Sissy Magazine, which details all the way he is a sensitive male, from how to cry to making quiche. Trisha?
So the next question is, what were the goals and intentions with handling topics of feminism and equality in this episode?
To make sure that I studied my script.
I was happy I got to play Clint Eastwood.
I like the wigs. I like the big wigs. It was funny.
You wore quite a few of them.
Yeah. It was easy. It was easy because Rita was driving the ship, man. From day one. Rita was like, and Rita and Crystal had a relationship. So those of us who didn't know them, all us guys that came in and didn't know them before, we like, oh, okay, Alan C. and Rita and John and Crystal, they all know each other. But Crystal and Rita are pushing this ship. So it was never a question right from the start.
I love to distract everybody when they're so serious trying to hear their lines.
I think in general, like all the subject matter throughout the show, throughout the whole time, we were just like, yeah. That makes perfect sense, and it feels right and feels good, and it just, I need a script. I'll
Do you want to borrow mine?
I would say too, for me, playing women and the girls was an exaggeration. It really was, so that we could see the difference of those girls at school that are like, hey, look at your hair. What about my hair? Look at your hair. That's not a real self. So when we over exaggerate that, I think that helps to be able to, in contrast, we can see when we're authentic. We can see 100% when, like Mickey said, when we sing the song, when we round it up, at the end of the day, down at the Roundhouse, we're all friends, you know?
Hey, we gotta go take a picture real quick for this game show that we gotta do. So we'll try to come back. I don't know if you guys will still be here when we get back. But we'll come back after we go do a quick picture.
Good to see you guys. Miss you.
It was good seeing everybody.
I go to work.
You know, gotta pay the bill.
Have fun.
Go to work. If we're still here, then we'll let you in.
Okay,
Alfred, I want contact.
All right.
Yes.
If anybody see Benny, just let him know I'm selling these albums to him. I'll sell him these albums.
One of the left.
I'll sell them to him.
One of the left.
I ain't gonna give them to him. I got to get 100,000 each album, and they're worth about $500,000. I saw them online. People selling them on eBay.
We're doing the voice tonight. We got to go do the voice, the chair.
Nice.
Princess Cool.
Benny, hopefully you're watching this.
Good seeing you, man.
You know, it's a trip for me. See you guys. I was gonna say it's a trip for me because my little girl's 12 and turning 13. You know, my family's just a mess. We watch NFL football and musicals because that's the way we roll here. And my little girl, like Roundhouse, I can't believe it felt like it was so ahead of its time, but because we're all excited to be like, hey, let's watch Oklahoma, let's watch, you know, and every one of those musicals, she's like, why are the women all just sitting around? This sucks. She's like, she hates all the early Disney movies. She's like, it's just a bunch of princesses sitting around, you know, and like that is such a touch point for these girls today. And they're, you know, again, watching the Super Bowl this weekend, all these commercials with all the, you know, women empowerment stuff. But it started way back when, you know, and that's like in the 90s is when you saw musicals change and movies change and things were finally coming from a woman's perspective. And, you know, even female directors and things were starting to get more play. Mm-hmm. And it's come a long way. But I think it's classic. We're trying to tell my little 12-year-old girl how dope these old musicals are. And she's like, female roles are whack.
Yeah, I think the tides are definitely turning in the early 90s with a lot of experimentation and really thinking about the authentic connection between the performers and the viewers at home. And I noticed that as a common thread, as I mentioned in the 30th anniversary reunion episode, that made a lot of these shows that Nickelodeon were like getting on their roster back in 1991, helping them just take off like a rocket ship. Are You Afraid of the Dark, Ren and Stimpy, Doug, Rugrats, just to name a few. Clarissa Explains It All. It all dealt with like characters that were dealing with stuff that was relatable, but also they were cutting edge so that you wanted to be like them, or you could aspire to some of their values that made them either like cool or intelligent or just something that was more desirable than, you know, some of the struggles that we deal with our lives growing up.
All right. Moving on, Mr. Brett.
Alrighty, back to the episode. We're segueing into the next sketch featuring Michael Bolton, played by David Sidoni, advertising a new male fragrance called Wuss for the sensitive male. Seymour passes by, commenting he's wearing a nice perfume. Cut back to Dad asking Mom if she is still having her equal rights problem. In a deep, robotic-sounding tone, she angrily shouts in Dad's face, "I'll make your voice hard, monkey boy." She slaps a frozen TV dinner onto his lap, then leaves. Dad complains why family normally has rump roast on Thursday nights, not frozen TV dinner. While he contemplates all these sudden changes, Natalie visits Dad, asking him if he wants to become a feminist. She then advertises the dinner as Stay Hungry Man's Dinner from Turd's Eye, mentioning several of the punny dishes such as chauvinist pigs in a blanket and equal rice-a-roni. Dad motors out of the living room, and we transition to the classroom, where the announcement intercom mentions the big autumn dance is coming up and they need chaperones. Juline's character complains the candy she is eating is melting all over her. Sam adds that the candy is a product of a male-dominated society that makes poor confectionery decisions women are better at making. Jennifer's character advertises Feminems, a candy that neither dissolves nor digests ever. They just make you angry in a man's world. Julian's character asks Sam if she has a date for the dance, to which Sam replies, "I don't care for any stupid dance." Julian's character adds Sam wouldn't think it would be stupid if Mark took her. Just then, Mark enters the classroom scene. Everyone but Sam scatters. Mark approaches Sam sheepishly, wondering if Sam will kick this guy's butt who's been bullying Mark lately. Sam rolls her eyes and leaves. Mark wonders what he said to make her upset. Trisha, what do you got for us?
So how do you feel that this scene depicts gender roles back then and even today?
I don't see the problem.
I think it's just kind of like poetically there that she slaps a frozen dinner that someone else cooked that's in front of the TV. She slams it on it. There's your food. They don't have a relationship at all, you know? There's no family relationship. They're those gender roles. But at the same time, you look at the abuse if the guy doesn't know what's going on. And that happens a lot with women, that they've done a whole scenario in their head. They've gone through this whole thing of assuming this is what's happening. And a lot of times I think the communication, when you don't just say, hey, this is what's wrong with me. I'm frustrated because you're not getting out of the chair, dude. Let's go. Right? Instead of doing that, it becomes passive aggressive. Mm-hmm. And then she is now like, here's your thing. And da-da. We're not running in copacetic good times anymore, you know?
Yeah, there's definitely communication issues between mom and dad throughout this episode, not just in this scene, where they think that what they're doing is either right or they're just not being able to convey what they need from the other person to make this relationship continue to function in a harmonious manner. And we just continue to see their heads butt until we even get the kids involved and medications involved, and it just seems to like spiral out of control. And I feel like it could have been avoided if they just took the time to slow down, even pause for a little bit, and just think about the words they're using to talk to each other rather than acting on impulse and, you know, reacting rather than responding to, you know, each other's complaints about each other.
Yeah, for sure. And that's the thing that we have to look at. It. What are we teaching our children by our example? Because kids don't know what the heck is going on. They don't know the trauma. They see the action. They see the behavior. They're scared because it's not grounded anymore. And then look at, you know, Mickey's character. And she arm wrestles him right away because that's what she knows is going on at home. There's no comfortable intimacy. It's just, I'm being intimate. Oh, take that. Yeah, and television has a lot to do with that. There's a whole other thing that we don't even discuss of the drug of the television world that we say it's okay to be addicted to television, basically. But there's always like that hole in the house when someone's attention is not fully on the family. And I think that's the key.
Yeah, definitely. It brings Requiem for a Dream to my mind when I think about just everyday indulgences that we take for granted, but also having such an impact on us in terms of manipulating the normal way we think if we just remove that element and, you know, have more face-to-face interactions to strengthen the relationships in our lives.
Yeah, to calm your psyche, to go back to one. You know, we say in acting, back to one, do over. Just forget it. Fresh one, start over. We have to go back to one almost constantly. That's how we process as beings. And I think we're pushed as a society, like the moment you wake up, boing, make that sale.
Yeah, stimulation overload, goals, expectations, all of it. Yeah.
We can't make proper decisions, I feel like, as a society, because normally as people, and this is to go true with anything, we move at a pace. If someone starts to speed up, another person speeds up, and then the next thing you know, we're all circus clowns.
Yeah. Eventually, you know, we'll be hitting a wall or going off the edge, and to really take in the impact of our actions of just not taking that time to bring awareness to the situation.
Yeah, just so we all know, like I told my son, I don't care if you're flying to the moon or jumping off the third-story building, you're still standing in your own shoes and sharing space with everybody. So be cool, dude. You know, just be
Indeed.
cool.
Same to Dad.
Yeah.
Gotta get out of that chair and just give everyone a hug.
Dude.
Turn the TV off. So moving on with the plot. Back at the living room set, Sam asks Mom if she gets that way too fresh feeling. Mom dumps on men, stating that they are rude, crude, and totally insensitive. And to fix that, Sam should try Massive Guilt Feminist Spray that will make chauvinist pigs squeal with delight. Sam proceeds to spray her father directly in the eyes. Dad screams, covering his glasses. I can't see, he cries out. A second later, Dad apologizes to Mom and acts more feminine in nature in his dialogue. Once Mom finishes advertising the spray, Dad turns on the TV with a bike horn to watch Curtain Rod Stewart hanging on the window, played by David Sidoni. As
I told you drapery.
Yep. As he badly sings one of Rod Stewart's hits, Have I Told You Drapery That I Love You? Mom interrupts with her emotionally charged feminist chant, pacing for the TV and into the background. Cue upbeat, funky dance routine featuring Julene, Alfred, Sean, Mickey, Ivan, and Seymour. Fade out to the commercial break.
Roundhouse and the Big Orange Couch will snick again after this.
Nick invites you to explore lifestyles of the putrid and smelly. Every weekday, descend into the underworld and get to know our real monsters as never before. Admire their attire.
Look at me, sweetheart.
Savor their behavior. And sample their cuisine. Yes, they eat garbage, and I don't know why. Repulse yourself with our real monsters every weekday at 4/3 Central, only on Nickelodeon.
Ren, why are we hiding in the dark? The new episode, you fool! The brand new Ren and Stimpy this week on Nickelodeon? Shut up! You said too much already. Don't you see? Soon they will know everything. See the unspeakable things. Maybe if we don't tell them when it's on, they'll never see it. Stimpy, for once, you're brilliant. We just won't...
Watch Nickelodeon's brand new episode of Ren and Stimpy this Saturday on Snick.
One of the most memorable things about our favorite Nickelodeon shows is the music. The theme songs set the tone for the adventures we are about to embark on. The music in the background added to the weight, silliness, and even fear that we should be experiencing. Not to mention the various musical guests on All That, the fun music videos on Doug, or the various fake bands on countless episodes. Music and songs are integral in setting the scene for some of our favorite childhood shows. That's why Brett and I partnered together with guest Zach to discuss our favorite Nick tunes. You will only find this episode exclusively on Patreon. Go to patreon.com/Splat Attack to gain access to this episode as well as our backlog of episodes, live streams, early releases, and more. And while you're here, please hit the like button, subscribe, interact with us on the YouTube community, make sure you hit the notification bell so you don't miss anything that our slime tank has in its contents. Grab your Nickelodeon Sonic Blast and crank up the volume.
We now return to Roundhouse and Snick, only on Nick.
Trisha, what you got to ask for our esteemed guests?
Well, first I have to add, I cannot hear that Rod Stewart song without singing the Curtain Rod Stewart.
Right.
Come on, Sid.
Nobody can. Nobody can. That is my mark on the world.
Have I told you, drapery, that I love you?
Ladyfingers should be renamed person tickets.
Is that going on your headstone?
On my headstone. This is the dude you sing when you sing Rod Stewart.
But questions.
Have I told you, drapery, that I love you?
Was there ever a time in your life where you felt being sensitive in a situation benefited all the people involved?
Yes. Okay, maybe not quite like that. Maybe not that sensitive. You want to know the truth is that I think that these characters, the mom and the dad, they're in a weird way, they're probably really representative of the parents that we had or the grandparents that we had. And the evolution, of course, we try to grow, we try to open ourselves up to growing another level, being more communicative. But they're caricature, and yet they're not. They were our real parents. There's no textbook of how to really be. You learn from the people behind you. So yeah, we want to try to grow and do better. So there's times when you think that what you're saying is sensitive, and then you read the room and you go, oh, what I'm saying is really not being received by the room. And those are moments that you can grow. At the end of the day, though, those life circumstances are going to happen, and you can't wait for the world to fit your need of, oh, this is what I need in my life. No, you have to learn to adapt and work around it a little bit too. It's not all just kumbaya and the world will accommodate me. These kind of episodes point out the things that we all see. It's what we all grew up with. Let's be honest. That's what we grew up with. Was it always right? No. And yet at the same time, it wasn't all wrong either. So you see what didn't work, you try to adapt and do better. Most of us here are now parents, and we all believe in trying to break the cycle of the bad stuff. But no matter how bad your mother or your father was, there were moments in there, of course, and you go, God, that was really good. I act just like my dad. And some days you go, that's not a good thing. And yet there's other times when you go, you know what? I'm really glad that I learned that lesson from him or my mom or her, So being sensitive to, I'm a dad, I'm a husband, and I have 3 daughters. It's important for them to know that you can be whatever you want to be. You don't have to be what I want you to be, but do it with your own integrity, and don't let anybody tell you no, even if that comes from me, because I'll bring my own stuff to it, and I'll say, no, you can't do that, and they'll say, why not? And then I have to step back and go, yeah, really, why not? Why can't they? So I catch myself, I have an impulse, I speak out loud, I say something. Being sensitive to their needs is something I have to learn and grow. So in a weird way, I become dad on the chair, right? On the rollaway. What was the word?
Motorized.
The chair. No. It was a nickname that was for the expressway, whatever it's called.
Easy chair expressway.
Yeah, we become that. We're our own stereotypes. Every one of us, whether I'm dad or Julene, maybe his mom at some point, right? Then your kids teach you too. Your wife teaches you too. Your daughters will teach you. I don't know. I feel like I'm rambling a little bit, but it comes from, there's all these things that go with having a child. I have a 32-year-old.
Holy crap!
I mean, let's be honest. I have a 32-year-old who's a school teacher. I have a 24-year-old. She's married to someone in the Navy. They're in Spain right now. I have a 15-year-old navigating high school. That's a lot to unpack. And generationally, you learn different things. What you did with your 32-year-old is not what you did with the 24-year-old. And they teach you real fast when you're at your 15-year-old. You go, wow, I can't believe I did that. And there's times when you go, yeah, I really screwed that up. And then there's times I go, you know what? I'm glad I did it. I'm gonna do it again. So that's episodes like this. I think the writing highlights those moments in our lives.
Truly they do. I know a lot of generations have their own baggage with how they were raised, and preventing passing on some of their flaws or mistakes onto the next generation, so that we can get better as a species a little bit each time. But it's really nice to have these conversations and these moments with everyone, whoever it is, just to really collectively come together and think about, okay, yeah, we probably shouldn't do these things next time, even if we've made these mistakes in the past, because we don't want to keep repeating them forever. We want to learn, we want to grow, we want to evolve and come out as better people through it. And I feel like that again stems back to The conflict that mom and dad keep having is just not getting on the same level. We need to find that balance and that understanding from the other side so that we can all move forward and not just be at a constant stalemate whenever like certain issues or conflicts arise. Good life lessons in the show, like way more that I've noticed in reviewing this versus when I was a kid, just tuning in for the music. And the
it's very deep.
Yeah. It ages like fine wine, and that's why it's getting a resurgence again in popularity.
All right. Continue the episode there.
So back from our second commercial break, we ease into the sketches with a more low-key, jazzy dance routine featuring the four boys, Ivan, Sean, Alfred, and Seymour, jumping around in a tightly choreographed routine. Dad rolls in once the audience cheers for the dancers, and we see another fake ad on Dad's big screen living room TV. This time, Lonnie Anderson advertises Burt Reynolds rap to keep your man fresh. He's young only once, but old for a long, long time. Dad gets a kick out of the ad, but accidentally insults his wife. Segue into another ad narrated by Natalie. Politically correct doll, a tool designed to say things the safe way without offending anyone you love. She closes the ad by explaining it also comes in a sugar-free option for the anatomically engorged. Dad watches another ad on TV for bugs and butt cracks, but is really interrupted by another one of Mom's angry rants as she paces around the stage proclaiming changes society must make to allow men and women to be treated equally. An example of what she mentions is how mailmen should be called persons, and Girl Scouts should be called Goddess Warrior Baked Goods Distributors. Mom exits the scene. Dad changes the channel to a bean cuisine entree for just guys. Dad perks up, then rolls his keister up close to the TV where Mark David's character explains to him the ingredients contain just beans. And Dad sings the Beans Beans song, then rolls out of the living room. Take it away, Trisha.
So what are your thoughts on the fake products in these scenes?
And was there any kind of difference between doing like the fake products or just the random TV commercials? Is the feeling still very much the same?
I like the fake products a lot. It's feeling the same. It's just an extension of the TV bits. I like stupid. I'm a Mel Brooks person, so I like things. When the Beans thing came up, I was stoked that I got assigned to it. I'm a Blazing Saddles fan, and so that's perfect. I loved it. I love silliness. Yeah.
If you saw the work that our props department did in the back to create those props, I got such a kick going back to their little workstation and watching them make up products. I'm just amazed. I'm just amazed at what they could actually do. And they look real. When they went on stage, they looked like a real product. I got to give credit to all those people backstage.
They were amazing. And it's crazy how 30 years later that those parody names will still pop in my head. I'm with my kids at Toys R Us and I'm singing Malibu Mudslide Party. Like, where did that come from?
Can't buy a pack of gum without thinking about tried it.
Because they made me, remember they kept making me emphasize it so it sounded so stupid. And you were just laughing at me. Tried it. Oh, I hated that.
I love this one because Lonnie Anderson, it's more like revenge product.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like keep him around, but sometimes cut off his breathing.
Well, I've got a question of how challenging was it to jump from a dance routine in between sketches?
It's breathing. That's the hardest part. It was like for Mark David and I, when we would shoot out from a dance and then have to like do a sketch, I'm going, but I'm hiding it by going, hi everybody, and inside I'm going, those were the hard ones because you can't speak, you're out of air, but we did it. We're done.
Yeah, the same goes from coming out of a scene that had a lot of energy or something like that, and then sing.
Mm-hmm.
And Laura Williams came back. We actually have a couple of questions for Ivan. Laura Williams wanted to know, what was your experience like splitting your time between choreography and being any kid? I
I looked at my role on the show as a dancer. I had no comedy experience. I can't sing to save my life. So it was, I owned it. I loved I loved the staging aspects of the show. I worked really closely with Reed on staging the show and doing the choreography. It was just a creative time in our lives. And we had, I think in this episode specifically, I didn't choreograph this episode, but if you look at this episode, some of the dance routines that we did, the guys and the girls are doing the same choreography. It wasn't like guys choreography and girls choreography. We're doing the same thing. And I think that's credit to Julene and Mickey and the female, cast that was on the show. Like she was just saying, it was very difficult. Some of the choreography was extremely athletic and aggressive, and the girls were doing it the same as the guys. So I think that's credit to them. And I just really enjoyed the freedom and creative freedom that we were given on the show to push choreography and make it featured. It was featured on the show, and I think that was it was just a great experience all around.
I thought it was great how because originally I think like me and you were hired as dancers, and but then you filled in that space when Dominic was no longer a part of the show, and you filled that space up and you did it so smoothly. I always was in awe, because I know whenever I had in that episode when I had to step in, it was very challenging, to speak when we were used to dancing our art. So I applauded you.
And Reese Borges, he was somebody else who was also in the Facebook group. He had a choreography question for you, Ivan. How does your choreography style differ from Barry's?
Well, I've known, it's funny. It was inspired by Barry. I think maybe my choreography had a little more, Barry was, he was also a technician. We're very similar. I met Barry when I was probably 12 years old, and I've known him for a really, really long time. And he inspired a lot of the stuff that I did. Mm-hmm. Maybe my choreography was a little more technical, and his was a little more staccato and street. I think I probably incorporated a little bit more partnering, because I did a lot of partnering as a dancer when I was younger. So I think I probably had a little more partnering in some of the stuff that I did. I think that was maybe a difference. I also tried to play with different styles of dance. We did a Latin dance number, and we pushed the band to create, we always worked really closely with the band. So I think maybe my stuff was a little more technical and jazzy than Barry's, but still had the same street edge. And, we were obviously collaborating. I worked with Mickey a lot on the routines. I worked with Alfred and Seymour a lot on the routines as well. So it was very collaborative experience when it came to that. And Barry was, he was one of my mentors. So for me, I was just trying to keep that level of quality and choreography at the highest level that he had already set the bar for. It was a high bar that he set, and it was, I just wanted to keep that legacy going with the show and the movement. So
you did bring some more girl stuff into it, more like the fluidity, where he was more staccato.
I would say
which I enjoyed.
That Ivan used the geometry of the set more.
Yes.
Ivan would grab the geometry and go, we're going up here now, we're going over here now, and he pushed it. He was very similar to Barry, but he took Barry to another level. Like when you did the 7-count bumper, that you and James came up with that, and that took us a second, because we're pushing into a time that's not comfortable. And I mean, Mickey and I kept going 7. Right, that counts. You can't count 7. That's 2 counts. It has to be 7. And I appreciated that Ivan, when it was his turn to choreograph, that he would go and he would bring in other styles, or he would let's get the afros out and, do a whole afro number and climb on behind the drummer and go up in the audience and start there. And that's what I thought was fun when Ivan started to do it, is that he was not afraid to go all over the place.
Yeah. I agree 100%.
The openness of the set, everything we're talking about, allowed Ivan to choreograph from inside the lens. It wasn't guys do this way, bumpers are this way. It was like everybody do their thing. And so the strength that was given to our female characters from the beginning, you know, embodied through Barry's choreography, where they did the same thing as the boys. Then when Ivan was given his shot, he got to do, nobody was going to say no. It was like, go for it. And that was, I loved watching Ivan choreograph from the idea of the camera, you know, and then he gets silly because we were playing soccer and like, let's do a soccer one, you know, and it was dope. It was just open like that, where everybody, and again, because it came down from the top, there wasn't a strong female energy or a strong male energy on set. There was a strong energy. So when Barry passed it to Ivan.
No, I agree with what you were saying. He was very inclusive. I think,
Yeah.
Ivan, you were like, I want to get, because you knew that, like, when you got Crystal involved in the dance, like you just wanted to involve everybody. It's like, it was a team thing. And I think that was really special.
Here's a question, Ivan. So, you know, we've watched Barry choreograph, and it's very, very organic. It happens sometimes in the moment. The breeze comes through the door and he moves the way of the breeze, and all of a sudden that's the new move. I almost feel like Ivan, because he had those limited moments where he would choreograph, there was conceptualization already brought. Like, maybe you didn't know it at the moment. Like, and Julian, you nailed the point exactly. You really used the space. You explored the entire soundstage. And I wonder, did you have that in mind? You said conceptually, this is what I want to try to do, whether it's with the staffs, you know, or like you said, the Latin style of dance. And then you said, all right, now figure out what to do with this idea with the players that I have in hand.
Yeah, I think to your point, for me, my strength was using the space and the cameras to enhance the choreography. And I think I'm not a natural choreographer. It's not natural for me. Barry is a natural choreographer. When he moves, you put on music and he just moves and it comes out. Organic. I had to actually work. I had to work at like the movement and the choreography. I had to like come up with it and think about it. And it was hard. It was hard. I don't necessarily think, but choreography is hard, period. But I don't think it's hard for Barry because it's so natural to him. He has such beautiful fluid movement as a person. And he grew up, you know, in the dance world. His mother was a phenomenal dance teacher who, you know, taught, Puff, you know, she was around forever and danced, you know, and was he grew up in it. I didn't start dancing until I was 10, I think. But you know, he was dancing from the time he was 2 and 3. And I think that's it's a learned trait that you know, and I loved it and I still love it. And I was inspired by hip hop, obviously, you know, I mean, that was the, you know, 89, you know,
with the New Jack Swing movement.
Because I was a photographer growing up. So for me, it was like, I was all about cameras and movement. And then I was able to take choreography. And I think that's when people look at my directing, I had to choreograph the cameras, you know, that's how I dragged directing. I mean, choreography and dance into my directing world is to sort of choreograph the movement. So I think Roundhouse is a great place for me, a real, you know, and develop those ideas and develop a style that still sticks with me today. So,
God, Ivan, you should direct a musical. I swear it would be shot right. I mean that. You're right. He knows how to work the dance through the camera.
Brett, why don't you go ahead and talk about the next part, and Trisha, you can take off with the musical question.
Okay. So getting back into the episode, Mom advertises another feminine product called Cramprin. Mom says she's having female problems again, but Dad doesn't care, as long as it doesn't interfere with the yard work. Mom insists Dad try the candy to see if he changes his opinion of her problems. Dad takes a piece and eats it, and then his son interrupts, grabs the quote-unquote candy, and scarfs it all down. Both of them begin sobbing while experiencing a gassy bloating feeling. Son jumps onto Dad's lap, and they both ride off stage to mop the kitchen floor together. The camera zooms out to Natalie explaining Cramprin is available at the PMS Mini Mart. The camera zooms back as Mom states she can't let her PMS go to waste and leaves. Sam picks up the phone, complaining why it's so hard to find a nice guy after Julien's character told her Dan asked her to the dance. Switch pan to Jonathan's character hosting a dating game show called Scuzz, where 3 guys are given the harsh truth from 2 women who went on dates with them. I'll just share a clip of Jonathan running through the game show questions here. It's too detailed for me to explain.
Shauna,
Yes?
which one of these guys is least likely to hold the door open for you?
Well, actually, Dan let the door close on my hand and I broke 3 fingers.
Ooh, ouch. Dan, you got a chauvinist pig there. Kim,
Yeah?
which one of these guys is most likely to check for cavities with his tongue?
Oh, definitely JJ. After he dropped me off, I had to be rushed to the hospital for an emergency tonsillectomy.
Ouch. Hey, Shauna, which one of these guys is most likely to say, I'm sick and can't go out on a date, and then go out the very same night with your best friend?
Dan or JJ or Bill. All 3 of them.
Well, looks like we got a tie. Congratulations, guys. You're all losers. But then again, everybody's a loser on Scud.
The host proclaims every man on the game show is a loser except for him and walks off with 2 female contestants under each arm grinning. Back in the living room, Mom celebrates finally landing the Barneswell accounts, claiming all she had to do was be more assertive in the workroom to earn it, and shove a staple down her boss's throat, too. Sam worries about how Mark thinks Sam is too strong for him. Mom reassures her daughter, just because you're strong doesn't mean you're not feminine. Sam decides if Mark doesn't like her for who she is, then she'll just be fine without him. Sam walks to the school hallway, where Sam helps Mark get his locker door unstuck. Mark thanks her, but Sam suggests that he call her Samantha. Mark then confesses he only came to her locker to ask Sam out to dance. Sam says yes, because it saved her the trouble of ramming a stapler down his throat. Mark leaves, then all her girlfriends and Mom flood into the set to congratulate her and join in for the standard end-of-show song and dance. Jennifer steals the spotlight as she sings Make a Change along with Julene, Natalie, Mickey, and Sean. Trisha?
What do you enjoy the most and the least about the musical numbers at the end of the show?
That it was the end of the show.
Right answer. We wanted to keep going.
Yeah, we just wanted to keep going.
Yeah, I was going to say, by the end of the show, we had been on such a beautiful momentum that it just felt so good that we had finally done it in front of everybody and rehearsed it, that we were ready to just keep going, I think.
I think me and the boys had moments, you know, some of us who had done Newsies together and had big crowd scenes with singing together. Like, for me, there's a lot of stuff not on camera, like just me, Ivan and Mark just kind of hanging in the back, singing our oohs and ahs and laughing with each other. That was, it was a cool vibe to end. It was like ending every week around the campfire at the beach with your bros and ladies.
Yeah, it definitely felt like a party at the end
fun.
where everyone could join in. Not only the live audience that was there, but the viewers at home as well. Just, you know, like we mentioned again in the 30th anniversary reunion, it's like a safe place where you feel like you're with your family that's inside the TV, not anything beyond that.
And you could see that at the end too, she pulled back cameras, so you could see like the handheld camera guy, you could see the cables running, you could see the audience, you could see the whole thing, and that's what made it so special. It was like a playground. You could see the whole playground, and then your mind could be able to go in with the different cameras, you know, on that space. And that's what made it so much fun, is because you got to see the whole thing.
Exactly. And there are many moments where all you guys were having fun with that dynamic of the cameras pulling away too, where, you know, you make some silly faces in front of it or do some dances or, you know, just fun end of show banter, kind of like what they do at Saturday Night Live, but way more flexible and around the stage.
Yeah, sure.
It's definitely a family environment, you know. Everyone was a family. I mean, from the band to the crew to the cameras to the, you know, audience members that came back repeatedly. But it was a family. We hung out. We, you know, can't tell you how many times I still to this day I work with camera operators that were on that show.
Wow.
You know.
Oh, awesome.
Wow.
Yeah, I think the first episode really set the tone too, because it was about meeting the every family. So it's not like that was never a question of what is this dynamic going to be like for the show or even for the viewers. It's, you know, this is why we're all here. This is what we're going to show you. If you like it, great. Join in with us. If not, maybe it's not your thing. But either way, we're going to have a lot of fun and do our best to entertain you. And I really love that about the core nature and philosophy with the show.
Yeah, and I think with Rita, she saw, like, we all had strengths, you know, like, I came in actually as a dancer, and it was because I was fooling around at the audition that Buddy gave me a sign. Like, you're kind of funny. And I'm like, I'm having a good time. I'll do my best. And when I read it, I was like, oh my gosh, this is fun. I love being silly. I love being funny. You know, yay, good for me. But I always sang, but I only sing at home. I only sing for my kids. I sing for myself. I write my own music, but I wasn't going to perform it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Especially when standing next to Jennifer Seehey and Crystal and Lisa and Amy, and there's just like a bang right out in front of you. But I did still sing, and that's what made it wonderful. You know, Ivan got to play the kid, Mickey got to play the kid, we got to sing, Crystal got to do the dance bumper. You know, we all felt like, oh, I want to do what you're doing. You know, somebody who didn't feel comfortable with comedy or whatever, like I would be, Mickey, what do you need? I'll help you. You know, this is fun. Like, where are you stuck? Let's make it fun. What do you want to do? And I think that's what we all helped each other.
Mm-hmm.
We really did. We really looked out for each other. And that's what was beautiful about it.
It's so crazy when you ask that question, because and everyone answering their question, answering it. I just realized something that it just hit me. It's like we were able to be, especially for me at that time, I was growing and making a lot of mistakes, but like doing that same thing at the end every time was like, but it's like, but it's okay because we love you, and it's like, it's gonna be okay. I mean, you guys would make fun of me all the time. I'd come in, I'd have a cute little outfit, and like, you're not that hot, and like it'd be like David Sidoni's like calling me in my place, and and I was like, and it was just cute because I got to like actually grow, and then be like, but they still love me even through all those mistakes. And I feel like that's what down at the Roundhouse, it was that like you go through these things, you can make messes and still be okay.
Yeah,
people will still love you.
Yeah, we even mentioned that in one of our other episodes, favorite Nicktoons that we just did, where the lyrics of the Roundhouse really embody that spirit, where like everyone's accepted, everyone's included, we're all here to be a family and have fun. And it just really makes me realize how well engineered the show was right from the get-go, with Benny and Rita working together along with the rest of the crew to really orchestrate everything to just let it be what it wants to be, which is just this beautiful ball of energy that reaches out and touches people in ways that resonates with us decades later.
Yeah, and it was tight. You'd be surprised. We barely did pickups. Mm-hmm. Each person was really tight. Each cast member, and that's what I always you know, when I left Roundhouse, my heart was like, I'm like, dang, that's a tight team, because I could count on them doing their part. I could count on them knowing their lines. I could count on them bringing their ideas. We could count on that at each other. And we rarely did pickups. And when we did, it was hilarious, because it'd be like, oh my gosh, we had a mistake. Stop the show. But
I remember that one night. We were there for a long time. I don't know.
But sometimes it happens. And Mark Davis and I are talking at like 9,000 miles an hour. Sometimes you get tripped up on that, and then you're still talking though. So it comes out like, and you got to start over. But we were clean. It was a tight ship, I'd say.
Yeah, everything always came together. It was great.
And say I haven't spoken up too much, but I think that's what, as fans, we loved so much, is that we didn't feel like we were watching actors. We felt like we knew each of you. We knew all of your names, and I mean, you even called each other your real names sometimes in the show, and it was almost like we were coming to see friends or family, or we're a part of this community, not watching a TV show. And so, I mean, I'm looking at this and I'm like, none of these people know who I am. And yet I feel like I'm seeing old friends for the first time in 30 years. And that's absolutely what it feels like, is a reunion of old friends, some of my first crushes. Hey, Newsy. You know, like,
mine too, girl.
I mean, you guys were role models. You were people that we admired, but you were friends. And you know, Brett mentioned like there was a place for everybody. And so it didn't matter if you were completely awkward, or, you know, you didn't know where you fit yet, which was totally those years. You fit. And the end of the show, when everybody's up there and, you know, singing the last song and reprising the theme song, you can see the friendships, you can see like the love when you guys have your arms around each other, and even as a kid you wanted to be a part of that, like you wanted to be in that line somewhere. And that's what made the show special. It didn't feel like a show, it felt like a family.
Very much. Very, very much.
Well, let's wrap up this episode review, and then we'll kind of segue into other things.
Well, wait, we're not going to wrap up that scene without talking about the fact that Mickey's character was asking me out, right? Just making sure.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to elaborate, you can.
It was written.
Oh,
so she wasn't really asking you out.
No, she was my little sis. It was I love her to death.
Forever the little sis. That was my dilemma. Yeah.
But it was awesome because it was so great. You know, we all had our roles, and I got to watch Mickey, you know, who I knew in that way, and jump into those roles and start to shine. And like, you know, like Jalene's talking about, I'm this musical theater kid and suddenly surrounded by the best singers in LA and the best dancers in LA. And then, you know, it was like, all right, half my job was moving sets. And then Munoz came along and I was like, cool. Yeah. And then Munoz came along and it was cool because every once in a while Rita would be like, Sid, this has got to happen. And it was like, okay, cool. Oh. And we all did our thing to support, and it was just amazing. So anyway, I just want to make sure Mickey's character asked me out. That's all.
So wrapping things up with the Annie family, Mom enters the scene in Dad's motorized chair, while Dad embarrassingly shuffles in with a white stapler rammed into his mouth. Sam breaks the news to her dad how Mark asked her to the dance, to which Dad replies in a muffled tone, "That's great, honey." Sam asks Mom, "What did he say?" as Mom grins, and she said, "Reprise the theme song and roll the credits." The Roundhouse gang assembles center stage to the end credits dance routine to be fun and silly in front of the camera. End of the episode.
And I'm going to transition over to Trisha for one final question. And I had made mention at the beginning of the episode that she has quite a very special connection with Natalie. And she also had told me before this episode that she has a question that she would like to ask you all as well. So I will pass the microphone once more over to Trisha to share with us her connection with Natalie and ask her question.
And I tell you, it's still surreal to hear my name in a sentence with Natalie's name, because I mean, she was my favorite. I love you all, but she was who I connected with on the show. And for years, like, she was just an autograph that hung on my wall, and somebody that I admired so much and had written to and probably poured my heart into some long fan letter. But I also completely Napoleon Dynamited her and like drew a portrait of her and sent it to her. And it's like cringeworthy, but I did. And I got the most amazing letter back from her. And it was magic for a 13-year-old fan to be, have somebody appreciate what you had sent them. So Natalie and I connected on social media, 5 months ago, and I was sharing with her, you know, I've kept your letter all this time, 30 years has gone by and I still cherish it. And I mentioned the drawing, and she said, "Wait, was it a pencil drawing, like a portrait?" And I said, "Yeah." She said, "I still have it. I kept it all these years." And I was like, no way. And so it took a few weeks, but she searched for it, and all of a sudden I get this, "Hey, Trisha Baker." And I went, oh shoot, she knows my maiden name. She found the letter and the portrait. And I tell you, like, that is the ultimate fan moment, to realize that like somebody who has impacted you so much, like something so small impacted them enough that they kept it for 30 years. And so that was just where we connected. And I mean, to say that she impacted me as a kid, she was just somebody I watched on TV, and now like I call her friend, and you know, I'm getting to glean wisdom off of her as a mom, and she's just a really good person who, if anybody gets the chance to encounter, I mean, you are winning in that relationship. So I feel completely honored that she stuck her neck out there and asked me to be a part of this and wanted me. She really wanted to be here, and she did send you all her love. I've been getting texts. How's it going? She wishes she could be here, and she wanted to tell everybody that this was like a brilliant episode, and she wished she could have been here to share her thoughts on it. But so because I'm here, because of, representing the fans and a fan letter that I sent, I guess my question would be, what was your most memorable moment with a fan? Whether it be somebody who came to the audience or sent you something or has stopped you in years since and told you, how much you impacted them, because you all impacted me, but there was that one person that out of all of you I connected with the most. And so fans are going to be watching, and it'd be great for them to be remembered as well. So best fan moment, go.
I got a good recent one, and then I apologize. Then I have to bounce. But I was picking up a prescription at Walgreens, at my local Walgreens in Manhattan Beach, California, and I went in, and there was a lovely woman working behind the counter. She looked like she was probably in her mid-30s, late 30s, and I gave her my ID, put it in, and she looked at me kind of funny. And she kind of walked away, and then she came back and smiled at me. And then and I was like, something's going on here. Like, this is funky. And she goes, I'm a 90s kid. And I was like, ah. And I said, okay. And she was like, were you on Roundhouse? And I'm like, how many Ivan Dudinskys do you know? and since then we've had a really funny relationship, because I see her she still works at the Walgreens, and when I pull in to refill my prescription, I see her, and it's just that was my funny recent fan story. Here we are 30 years later, and it was just a funny moment. And I love the term 90s kid. I'm a 90s kid. I'll never forget that. So that's my big fan.
It's like a badge of honor for us.
And Trisha, you represented beautifully tonight, both Natalie and the fans, and I thank you and all of those people that watched the show, because it was a special show. And I always talk to Rita, and we're like, what are we gonna do? How are we gonna bring it back? How can we get it back out there? We'll do it again. Not with us. We're all too old. But
speak for yourself.
Maybe still do it. But I'm done. But I'd be happy to direct some episodes. So anyway, I talked to Rita recently, and we're always trying to figure out how to bring it back for another generation, because it's still, as everyone said today on the Zoom, on the call, all of those things that we touched on 30 years ago, they're still relevant today. It's all still important today. The message is important today. The family is important today. All of those things that everyone said. But I just, love you all, miss you all. Always a pleasure. Great to see you. And we are a family. I see Mark David all the time. I saw him, a couple weeks ago. We're still brothers, and that's a long relationship. And thanks for having us. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
You're always welcome at the slime tank. It may not be the Roundhouse, and it may not be as big, but at least we can have you here, share some memories, and just be a family.
All right,
take care, Sid. See you soon. Sean, good to see you. Julene, much love. Mickey, I'll see you soon.
And we'll open the floor up one more time for, because this is our last question for the night. Do any of you have any other fun, memorable fan moments that you can think of?
I have one that happened recently, well, not that long ago, but it was kind of a funny, because it was like a double surprise. The work that I did on Avatar, there's a huge group of fans that are really, beautiful with the Na'vi people. And one young man is so wonderful, and I've been connecting with him and his family. And I had been connecting with him that I was a performer in that film, until all of a sudden one day we made an announcement that we were going to do this, and I posted it, and he went into a shock popsicle. He was like, wait a second. Hold up. You used to have short blonde. Oh my God, you're from Roundhouse. That got me more than Avatar, you guys. I was all, yeah, you know Roundhouse. It was like a double shock. Like it took him a second. Like, how could that be? It's possible, right? And thought it was so cute that he had that like back moment that double surprised him. So that was very sweet.
That's fun.
I have one that's kind of dark.
Oh no.
Ooh, I like dark.
Oh my God.
So I was like
CSI.
I lived in New York City for a little while, and I moved back. I know I had to say it. I came back, and I was hanging out at my local watering hole in Westwood, and the guy comes up to me and goes, "Hey, you own Roundhouse?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And he proceeded to tell me a story of how he was in Los Angeles because he was running from the 5 families in New York, and he got in trouble with somebody. He beat up somebody he shouldn't have beat up, and he had to go into hiding. And he was down in his uncle's basement, and all he did was watch Roundhouse and Nickelodeon. And he knew me from Roundhouse, but he was like on the lam. He was like on the mattresses. He told me the whole story when I saw him at the bar. It was like hilarious. I think that was like the most memorable thing that I could think of. Some grown man just like, I like the show. It was a lot of energy. It's like, okay.
That it does.
That is the epitome of the greatest thing about being Mark David's friend. There is never a dull answer to anything. That's so Mark David. I love it. I've got 2. One, it was just really random, and then the other one is like that kind of friendship thing. But somewhere in the middle of the run, probably between 3 and 4, because my very first performing was in 3rd grade when I played Joseph in Joseph the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat at my Catholic elementary school. I go to the show, 94 probably. My 3rd grade teacher is sitting in front of me at the show, my director, because she's going to do it again. And she's researching. And intermission, we come out and we start talking to each other. And I swear, right when she goes, "Well, what are you doing?" 3 little girls come up to me and start freaking out. Roundhouse, Roundhouse, Roundhouse. And I'm like, "Hey, girls, this is Mrs. Finefield. Talk to her for a minute about performing, because she's the one who got me started." And so they had that little moment. So that's my favorite fan story ever. But for me, a lot of the Roundhouse people, they know Age. Adrian has become a friend of mine from Roundhouse. And then she moved to LA, and we were buddies and have always kept in touch. Is neat to grow together and see like a different sense of humor with her. We always just rag on each other, but it's weird. It's in some ways like my wife has nieces that are like 10 years younger than her, but they have this forever bond. And now we send our daughter to go hang out with them, like up in San Francisco. And there are a lot of fans that were kind of your age that now we're like, it's kind of like that, my goofy uncle vibe or my weird cousin. And so, my life changed, and Adrian called me and said, "Hey, I'm moving." So I helped her and her husband find a team, because real estate's what I do now, and helped them buy their house up in Northern California or Northern United States up in Portland. And, because we've been friends forever now. So it was awesome. It was amazing. And I love you, Mark David. I only make fun of you because I just always sit behind you in awe and usually laughing so hard my side hurts.
For listeners at home, he just swapped the screen. All pshaw.
Sean, Mickey, anything for you two?
I mean, I wrote back to all of the fans. I still actually, when you said that you have that Natalie had the picture, I mean, I have all the letters and stuff like that. I said my mom's house, but I have this. But I do still have this beautiful rosary that someone had sent me, and I still have it to this day in my place hanging, because it was just so beautiful. But I've had recently, well, in the last few years before the pandemic, people that would come to my class and be like, are you Mickey from Roundhouse? And so that was a funny, I never would think would come around. But
Well, I mean, you haven't aged at all.
I was gonna say you look
Right?
exactly the same.
nice.
So
Thank you.
Right?
No. You're very sweet. But no, I mean it's weird to like, yeah, have people still remember it all this time. And then watching the show again, it was just like, oh God, I forgot like how great the show was in its topics.
Sean, any final thoughts?
Oh, I don't got any fan stories. I didn't have any fans.
Where are your
fan,
fans?
Sean.
Leave me alone. Don't talk to me. Leave me alone.
That's why we're here. We're talking about your episode.
You know, it's I've had the good fortune of running into a few folks here and there. And, you okay, Sid?
No. You guys are making me laugh.
Sid had some fans, and Adrian, isn't Adrian from Foster City?
Yeah, age.
Okay, so I remember her. I have a picture of her and her friends,
Shit.
Courtney and Adrian, right?
Yep.
Oh my God.
She's phenomenal. She moved to LA like sometime after Roundhouse. One of the other shows I was doing was you know, the kind of, it was a Nickelodeon Man on the Street show.
Yeah, Bing, the sound of something new.
David Stoney here for Nickelodeon's Bing, the sound of something new. And to let you know how committed I am to getting you the lowdown on what kids are into, I'm making the following pledge. I promise to go anywhere and do anything to find out what's going on in your world. I will try out the newest games and sports. I will sample the latest foods and fashions. I'll hang out with sports superstars and get up close and personal with big-time celebrities. Yeah, it's a tough job, but someone's got to do it. Watch Bing, the sound of something new. Next Friday at 7:30, 6:30 Central on Nick.
Yep, and then we did 4 episodes of something else called You to You.
We took you to a movie premiere. Hello. We took over Laura Quinn's house. And we took you to the stars. Well, this time, Nick's going to take you to the NBA All-Star Weekend for You to You Sportacular. You to You. And go behind the scenes of this year's Super Bowl. Plus, get a taste of the new All-Star Cafe in New York City. You to You. So join me, David Stoney, for a jammin' new You to You on the road. This Wednesday at 6, 5 Central. On the only network that connects you to you. Nickelodeon.
Everything I did with Nickelodeon suffered the same thing the Roundhouse did, which was the evergreenness of it. You know, because we were so topical that it couldn't rerun for 5 years because the jokes were, you know, about Joey Lawrence, and suddenly now.
Oh, those don't age.
Those don't age at all. He looked exactly the same. Yeah, so like I went up to Seattle and I met her and her family, and it was neat. You know, I mean, in Florida, we had those groups of what were the Woo girls that were like.
That's it, Woo.
The Woo girls.
So, David and I were roommates, if you will. You know, we shared the same cast room or whatever, dressing room, and he always had these fans that everything was David Woo Sidoni. I was gonna ask you, what was the word? It's the Woo.
Yeah, they were. I don't know why they were in. Maybe they were close in Orlando originally.
I don't know, but they were all big on it. The David Woo thing that we would be outside the soundstage and they'd go, you know, David, can you go tell him we're here?
They were from Orlando because they were making a big deal about being in LA. I remember them from Orlando for sure.
Yeah.
How funny. So yeah, so my fans were their fans, and I just happened to catch them all peripherally. But I'm good with that. You know, everybody was always really good about when they were fans of the show. It was nice to see the kind of quality of the fan base. I will say that the fan base was very unique. It wasn't fake. I didn't get the fake Hollywood fan vibe. Mm-hmm. They genuinely wanted to know the people that were on the show. And that was kind of refreshing because we've all seen shows where or audience members or fans that they just want to be near somebody and let me just get your autograph. And I never felt like that with a lot of Roundhouse fans. They actually generally cared and wanted to get to know you. So
awesome.
That was a nice thing.
All right. Well, I hate to cut abruptly, but like David, I know he's
my
got
phone's
to
about to die.
Yeah. We'll let you all go free into the world.
Thank you all so much for taking the time.
Thank you, Trisha.
It was amazing meeting you all.
Alrighty, so we'll just jump right into our Splat Attack ratings for this episode, because even though it feels like Roundhouse 30th Anniversary Part 2, this is still an episode review. Electric Boogaloo 2, episode 42. So all the tongue twisting out of the way. Trisha, what do you give this episode rating on the Splat Attack scale?
Well, I kind of already said, like, this wasn't one of my favorite episodes as a kid. But I also know that after rewatching it, what an important topic it really is. And for me, some of my favorite cast members weren't like highlighted in this episode. So watching it as a kid, it just wasn't one that was a favorite. So I kind of went, middle of the road, and I gave it a B. But that's because there were some great takeaways like Curtin Rod Stewart, and I loved Sean's rants, and so I give it a B.
Sounds good. Splash Factory it is. I'm actually going to echo those sentiments. I really love the progressive handling of this topic. I didn't see any other kids shows aimed at kids in the early 90s, dealing with more mature subject matter, and I give them kudos for even attempting it, just so that it could be out there for people to think about. One thing I do have to mention is that I would have rated this higher if it weren't for the fact that it felt like there was a few too many fake ads and TV like segments in this. I love them, don't get me wrong, but I had to watch this like 3 different times, and I felt like an emotional whiplash every time after it was over. Like, oh, okay, what happened? I need a break. What's going on? What was that? So I think I'm going to give it a Splash Factory, which is a B as well, just because it was just a lot for me personally to take in. But I do want to mention that the Wuss Perfume sketch, the Fry Willy, and the Make That Change song were personal highlights for me.
And I have a very different rating from the two of you, in not in a negative way. I really, really loved this episode. I was surprised at how much I loved this episode. Whenever you are doing a topical episode on any sitcom or television show, it can either make or break the episode just because of the subject matter. And Roundhouse is such breakneck pace as it is anyway, with its comedy, with its dance, with its music. And to know that going into this episode, because I didn't see this episode when I was a kid. I saw it as an adult. And of course, whenever I'm clicking on Roundhouse, Feminism, I know what I'm watching the moment I get into it. And it's one of those, oh my gosh, okay, brace yourself, because Roundhouse punches, and they constantly punch, and they punch on the extremes on both directions. And this could either be really good or be really, really cringy. Hello, Captain Planet, talking about gang violence. It's really cringy. So, yeah, because that really happened. So I went in cautious, but I was rolling. I was laughing at, and very opposite of Brett's response. I couldn't get enough of the fake ads and the commercials and the TVs. I thought they were hysterical, but that's also me, because I'm very pop culture centric, and I'm always putting pop culture references in everything. So it's definitely speaking my language. But it took what I liked so much about Roundhouse, and then also took a very topical discussion, like we had said earlier in the episode, is still prevalent today and still needs to be talked about today. And we still need to keep this as part of the conversation. And it made fun of the bigotry. It made fun of the extremism. It made fun of all that and everything in between. And even though it's quote unquote making fun of it, it's still bringing it up, because this really still happens, even more so than the extreme for the show. And I really it exceeded my expectations for what I thought they could do. So I actually put this in the S category.
Splatterific. Very nice. Well, with that being said, we're actually not going to do a segment today because this was a very engaging episode review.
And just because we are talking, this episode of Roundhouse was a very topical discussion, and we did mention this in our season 3 overview later this month, because this episode is going to be coming out in March. Later at the end of the month, we are going to be doing a live Q&A with Jennifer Seehey, who couldn't be here for this, but she is going to be there live to answer your questions. She is going to talk about Roundhouse. She is going to talk about being the singing voice for Sailor Moon. But more than anything, she also really wants to address mental health awareness, something that's very, very important to her. So come out for that. We'll make some more announcements as the time comes up.
What are some topics you appreciated Roundhouse addressing on their show back in the 90s? That is our closing question. Write to us via email at splatattack2021@gmail.com. DM us on Instagram at Splat Attack Podcast. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at Splat Attack Podcast. Or just interact with us wherever you feel necessary. We're wherever you can find us on social media of all sorts. Mostly Instagram and YouTube, but also Facebook, TikTok, Twitter here and there, Patreon, of course. You know, that kind of thing. So, with that being said, tune in next time, Slimesters, when we grab our lucky fish bones and make a sacrifice to a pig carcass, when we pray for some good luck during our St. Patrick's Day Versus episode, featuring Ah Real Monsters versus Ren and Stimpy, Oh Lucky Monster versus Superstitious Stimpy. This is a treat for many of our Slimesters because, until now, both Nicktoons have had very little coverage on our show, save for episodes B6 and B14 on Patreon, and episodes 1 and 11 on our main timeline. Until then, Alex, will you drain the slime tank for us, please? I've got to take some cramprin because I ate too many Feminisms.
Aye, go Captain. I'll heat up your Stay Hungry Man for dinner once you get back.
Yeah. Splat you later. I think I'm going to hurl.
Trisha, say this with me.
Reprise the theme song and roll the credits.
Reprise the theme song and roll the credits.
I reckon it's time for me to go.
I'm glad that's over. Now for a peaceful night's sleep.
Well, that does it for now.
Yeah, we gotta catch a train.
Since I'm going home, you can't my arts and crafts project. It's a tweezer holder.
All right, guys. Let's go fly.
How long have we been away?
See you soon. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.
Hi, I'm women's rights activist, Gloria Wyman, and I've had the same tied hairstyle since 1972. If your man treats you like a heap of compost, try the refreshing beverage for thirsty feminists. Equality. Equality is made from a blend of natural herbs and spices, plus real testosterone extracted from the biceps of Arnold Schwarzenegger.
I never knew Schwarzenegger could taste this good.
Just one glass of equality, and you'll grow strength. You'll grow confidence. You'll grow chest hair.